what other community in the state doesn't?
So
So, I mean, it,
355 other communities.
yeah, so,
She's got a point.
oh yeah, well, people will say, well, we have to go off island. My point is, I know people in our island home whose family is on island, and their family doesn't see them maybe once a month. Now, that speak well for the family, but it's still, they're right here. So
I don't know.
what's the big deal?
I don't know if it matters, does it? I don't know if it matters, does it?
Somebody parks the skies, and I don't see
Yeah, you can't do that. See, and I even sent a couple
Yeah, where's all the zoning
private
people?
emails around saying, you don't need a private. The best hospital can know.
anything before.
So is Andrew coming?
Number two, you don't need 1,000 feet per room. You can certainly do it at 60.
We should make that the motion, James.
So I mean, when you start, so I said to him, if you're going to put something forward, try to put something forward that is good, but pretty smart, so people are not going to.
Is it legal to do a rebate?
You know, the nurse from there, she got up at the special town meeting and said, these people don't care about views. They just want, their food on time, and they want
Good care.
good care. That's all
So
they
we're
care
going
about.
to even be
They
here.
don't care about
So I'm trying to get the
It's only the people that know nothing that care about views.
Of course, the ones who go visit it, they like the guy.
Yeah, they like it, but the people in there.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean, I think this
it's always people that know so little. Always have so much to say.
reaching consensus, and most of our tough votes are.
Oh, I know. What that consultant suggested at that meeting that I went to. I said there was my whole thing. 1,000 square foot per person.
Real estate and zoning.
Nursing homes.
Nice.
You're talking about the Ritz.
Area is the first one. That's fine. And I'm
This is Nantucket after all.
Yeah, you get a room at the Ritz and you don't get 1,000 square feet.
And sometimes not a water view either.
For sure. You going to start the meeting? You're late.
I am. You send the marshals for them?
I've lost it. Okay. David will know.
All right. No. So I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Finance Committee for Monday, February 1st. I'd like to welcome our only citizen who's a reporter for the Inquirer Mirror who's going to be covering us. Would you like to introduce yourself to the committee? Just to let us know your name and
No
so we
comment.
can welcome you.
Hi, Peter Sutters. I'm with the Inquirer Mirror. This is my second stint at the paper.
Great.
I was there from 2004 2008, so I've
Okay,
been around.
that's why we recognize you. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've been around FinCom meetings in the past, but
Good.
I'm looking forward to getting back into it.
Great.
Thanks.
Welcome. Glad to meet you. We're happy to help you and answer any questions you have, either one-on-one or. All right.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. All right. So our first item on the agenda is to review zoning articles, and we don't have our folks from the planning department here. So I spoke to Andrew today, this morning. He and Leslie's prepared, maps for us, as he usually does. I attended, as did Stephen Morey. And Craig, were you there? I don't. There may be some other FinCom members there at the Planning Board public hearings on Monday. After 2 hours, they'd gone through about a dozen or so articles, and I didn't stay for the rest. And I also asked him to, as he makes his presentation, to comment on any of the zoning articles that may have a financial implication, certainly as we had a conversation about the Richmond articles last year. Then we'll go on to real estate articles. We had invited the land bank to come before us either today or tomorrow, so we'd have this on the agenda, but Linnell told me just before the meeting that they're planning on coming sometime in early February. I guess this is February, sometime later in the month.
I think that they're coming, I thought it was next week, but I'll
Okay,
double check
yeah.
and let you know.
So maybe Linnell was going to go call them?
She's running to find
Okay.
out where he is. Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the school stuff?
It's not on the agenda.
Pardon me?
It's not on the agenda,
I
but
thought we were doing the school.
no, Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay.
So we got a bunch of stuff, school stuff yesterday and today.
Don't feel bad.
You're ready.
I started to read it too, and then I noticed it was the floor.
Right.
Got a bed at our
There it
home
is.
right next to your father's there.
Thank you.
So we'll just take a little break until the folks from the planning board staff come.
Okay. All right.
So we can't have a discussion on anything. That's correct.
Don't you have something though that is there? No, you don't.
Zoning, real estate,
You can talk, you can,
48 or 15.
David, you can talk about zoning, real estate.
They're on their way. They had 4:30 at the high school, so they printed off yesterday's agenda. So they'll be here in just a minute.
Okay, that's a dirty trick, isn't it?
4:30
Yesterday,
at the high
tomorrow,
school.
whatever.
That's Tuesdays.
She goes, your agenda says 4:30 at the high school. Oh, no, you're the...
I think it was down. Let me just I can take a quick look at where it was in here.
We're going to do room service.
see what happens. Should show it in here.
Yeah, I'm just curious, that's all. Once we got a minute.
Plus, well, that could be wrong. Plus 27? That doesn't sound
I
You're
had,
sort of flattish today, John.
yeah, yeah, I had visitors, so I couldn't, my wife always gets irritated when I get up in the middle of having visitors and go in and,
right. Put the scroll on.
yeah, check out. She said, that's bad form.
They're on
I've ordered a bottle of Christmas.
Whereas if you went and turned the football game on, that'd be fun.
No, that wouldn't be either.
That wouldn't be.
And it was a
She, no, she wouldn't like
You
that.
would like that.
glass
No,
of
she wouldn't do that either.
quick ass.
She must have been invited by someone.
I was invited after she spilled the wine.
Maybe I should ask.
What's, what happens at the Willard stays at the Willards.
Except in the lobby.
They don't have,
No, we did not. We had
Well, that's true, yeah, right.
the present warmer governor.
Oh, is that what he wanted? Assignation, please. That's all right. That's nice.
We were joking about, we were their only business.
No way, really?
It was incredible.
Wow, that's kind of cool. Well, you kind of, the whole group
The chef would come down and check on his eggs. I said, I'm sure you've got better things to do, so I'm sleeping there the whole weekend.
Oh, that's. So you turned out, you made fun of it. I
We
mean,
did.
you kind of made something.
We were in the grand ballroom for the Sunday's football games. They brought it up. LCD projector, a big screen.
And there were like 15 of you?
Yeah.
They were probably happy to have you there. You're probably, your staff to guest ratio might have
Well,
been
looking at
5
the
to
bill
1.
at the end, yes, they were happy.
Oh, really?
They were happy. Special assessment charge. Well, it's $150 for a plate of salmon. I was like, are you kidding me?
Like a meal, a dinner?
A meal for a plate of salmon. It was good.
Better be. That kind of money.
I was like, that's crazy. Well, once again, they had a scalpel. Yeah.
I don't know.
Did they have a sport assessment?
Actually, every tax, You step in the queue, and there's an automatic
What did you have?
Thursday morning.
Did they do the sous vide again?
You probably sent them all the agenda.
What do they call it hairline chicken, basically chicken breast with a little like on it. It was roasted.
Where was this?
Now, is that
Is that Nantucket Culinary Center on the corner of
Yeah.
Federal and Broad?
Oh, yeah, the big place, yeah.
You can sign, you can just sign up there. And they have, well, they don't have a, you have to go to the website and find out what night they're having one of these open dinners, but basically it's $100 a head, which covers food, booze, and just tip.
two of the diners that you did, one
We hired
chair,
private
transportation.
transportation.
A recent dinner.
Was it good?
Very, very good. I mean, and the people who run it, this guy Greg and his wife Joy Margolis, lovely people. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, they're trying to make a business out of it. He's much as admitted that once the summer folks start to arrive, prices are going up. It isn't going to be this modest when the boards are
Justifiably so. You'll be able to get there.
But it's beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful facility. And
Have you been to the cafe on that?
No.
I haven't been there yet.
I've actually heard mixed things about the food.
Is that right?
But some people say it's quite good. Other than that,
Yeah, we go out, we can't go out, the K has a broken wrist. So,
They're bargain.
and that means she can't cut, she can't
Are you
use
a
it
wine?
in a sling.
I don't
Uh-huh.
know.
So we haven't been out since she broke her wrist. She refuses to go out, because it's, she said, I can't eat with one hand. Not at a restaurant.
Unless
Usually the wintertime,
she doesn't want you feeding her in public.
yeah.
soup and salad, you could do all that.
Usually in the wintertime, we go out more, that's when we go out a lot. We got maybe 3 times a week, I'm an out
Hello?
So welcome, Andrew. We'll give you a minute to get settled, but otherwise you're up.
You guys ready for me, right?
We're starting with zoning articles.
Gosh.
And
Please.
He's different or
Same.
same?
so, and as I mentioned, Andrew and I did speak earlier. They've had one. The planning board's had one public hearing on this past Monday, and they're going to have another one later in this month and a final one in March. So, as he and I discussed, Linnell, we may want to look at their public hearing is the Monday before the articles go to the board. So we may want to have them ask Andrew to come back on that Tuesday as we're making our final motions. So, welcome, Leslie. Take a deep breath. March. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, and I don't know if you've all met our new land use person. That's
No.
Holly Lucas right here, who helped get all the maps together for you.
Bobby? Is that Bobby? Yeah. Bobby?
Holly.
Holly, okay.
Backus.
Holly, hello, Holly. Welcome.
We grabbed sort of a lot of the articles, so you're not doing sewer tonight, so I guess we can skip over those, but at least you have the maps, so you can refer to those in the future. And we're going to go to page 6, which is where zoning starts for your review. And
Page 6 of 39.
6. Okay.
so zoning this year starts at Article 33, which is coastal erosion liability waiver. We have not had the public hearing on that matter yet. So this is Article 34, which is the rezoning of the mid-island area. I believe this article is still open, is that right, Leslie? Oh, we closed this. So this is closed and has a positive recommendation? So this is implementing the commercial mid-island district in an area that's currently residential commercial with a mid-island overlay district. So this is a major goal of the master plan to get this district implemented. You can see it covers an area basically, the big building is the old Stop and Shop where the new one was built, fire station is there.
I don't know.
Between Orange, Pleasant, and Sparks. So essentially the commercial core area of the Mid-Island district.
Practical implications of making a change.
Well, it's going to simplify the bylaw in one sense in that right now you have the RC district with an overlay district that allows you to do things, where now it's just one streamlined district. It's the same minimum lot size, it's the same basic ground cover. It does prioritize commercial uses, still a mixed-use district, but it basically sets this, it's called residential commercial right now. That's very confusing to people because they think, oh, I'm in a residential district, but you're not. So, again, this is, there's roughly 90 acres of RC left. Originally, the downtown was part of RC, Mid-Island is part of RC, and we want them differentiated. And this is what does that.
And this article also raises the height restriction from 30 to 40 feet?
There's a separate article that
Okay,
goes with that.
but it covers this area?
In this area, if that other article passes,
Okay.
that would be a potential. But the rezoning itself doesn't do anything with that.
Okay.
This is a mapping exercise.
Okay.
Floodplain, are they in the floodplain here? It's supposed, so none of this district is in the flood.
When you say remapping, exactly what do you mean by it? This is simply a remapping.
Currently, the CMI district exists only in the bylaws. It's not, doesn't have a location on the map.
Right.
So this is putting the location on the
I
map.
got you. Okay. Yeah. This is just saying this is what it is, yeah. And that's all the article is about?
This article, that's what it does, just sets down the map.
Okay. Defines the area, yeah.
There was one gentleman, I believe, at the public hearing who was discussing building. He owns 2 lots, I believe, and wanted to know what options he had to build either single family or townhouses.
Right.
On that. Do you think that answered his? He seemed to have his concerns answered. I don't know if he spoke to you all late afterwards or.
I don't believe so. I mean, he has.
Okay.
There's an option that the lots are 5,000 square feet and 50 feet of frontage. Under the state law, he can continue to build a single-family house. And then there are other options.
With a special permit?
Pardon me?
With a special permit or not? Okay, all right.
And then there is an option, duplexes are allowed. We talked about that at the public hearing. There's also an option if another article passes. He has one building there now, and they could be considered apartments.
Okay.
To build additional structures.
Okay.
So I think his concerns are covered.
Okay. Any questions on this article from anyone?
Looking at the
Cliff,
map,
I'm sorry.
you got some, it's a lighter shade in one place that I can see. I'm just wondering if that just is the printing or? It's R1. Yeah, it's R1.
William Street.
Is that's
William?
Yeah, I got it. I'm all set. Yeah.
Cliff, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Residential old historic. I see different maps all the time. I thought the old historic district came all the way to Cherry Street, but like on this map, it seems like it's on Back Street. The ROH.
The ROH has there's two.
Yes.
There's two things.
Yes, there is.
There's the zoning district of ROH, and that is the correct location of it.
Okay.
Then there is the HDC, what they consider to be the old historic district, and that goes to, I believe that goes to Back Street. I mean, I'm sorry.
Cherry.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, we are trying to get those matched up over time. to make the two districts consistent. So where the HDC considers ROH the zoning bylaw to be ROH, we just haven't got to this particular area yet.
Yep.
There's another article in here, you'll see where we're doing that.
David?
Did you say it's not going to increase the ground cover in this area?
It's not. 50% ground cover now, 50% after.
So that, I'm just curious, I hadn't ever seen it from above, but if on the corner of Orange Street and Bear Street, which is actually the Marine Home Center's property, I assume, that looks like a fairly undeveloped lot. Is that, I assume that it's just, they could do something now if they wanted to, and this isn't going to increase the...
The issue there at Orange and Bear, you said?
Yeah, it looks, do you see, you know, is it wetlands in there?
It is.
Okay.
There are a few areas that we did not include that are currently zoned RC that we did not include in this commercial mid-island area, and that's the Marine Home Center main property, the area with the Boys and Girls Club. There's some areas that we want to take a look at for additional study. So those are not included, and those will be looked at in a separate phase probably next year.
So while we're on this first article, I'll ask the committee, we can do a couple things. We could put all these in a hopper, or we could take usually if we support the planning board, we say something like the FinCom supports the planning board motion. We could do that individually. What's your pleasure? Great.
Do it now?
Do it now?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay. Is that right? Cliff, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a motion to, what is our usual motion?
I think that's.
Do we make a comment or do we make a motion?
Sometimes we make comments, but
Comment.
Okay, it's a
but
comment.
otherwise it's-
So our comment is to support the planning board.
Right.
Okay. So is there a motion to make that comment, I guess?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Thank you. Okay.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Andrew, you were telling us what doesn't change, but what does change with this zoning, or nothing?
Just a minute.
Going from RC to the overlay.
The main change is that a single-family home is not allowed as a principle of use any longer
Oh, I
in
see.
this district.
Okay.
There's a current limitation of 2 dwelling units per lot that would change to allow apartment uses in this particular area. The industrial uses are basically no longer allowed anymore in here. It's really prioritized for retail, office, and those kind of uses that are consistent with what we have. So those are sort of the main changes. Missing?
Mhm.
Anything else? Okay, let's move on. Oh, go
So
ahead.
obviously, if you have a home there now, kind of grandfather.
Your grandfather.
Right.
Next one?
Okay. The next one, Article 35, and I believe we can close this as well with a change. This is an area out on Old South Road near the corner of Novadear Farm Road. And again, there's an existing pattern there of mixed-use development. This is where the Thai place is located on the corner, and there's some mixed commercial residential uses there. So this is on page 8 of your packet.
Yeah.
So we did take out some industrial uses that are located to the south. So just for orientation, all of these maps, north is up on all of the GIS maps. Okay, so to the south, you can see where that's hash marked out. And then there was another area that actually they requested to come out, which is the property fronts over here on Novadear Farm. And what they had in mind is more industrial type uses that would go with adjoining properties on Novadear Farm. So they asked to not be included in that CMI designation, and the board agreed.
Was that the testimony from a citizen representing he and his sister?
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay. Comments, questions about? So we have this article, the public hearing's been closed on this and had a unanimous support by the planning board. So, would anyone like to make a motion to comment that we support the planning board motion?
So moved.
Made by Joe and seconded by Cliff. Any discussion? All those in favor? Discussion?
How much RC, I know we did a lot of the RC2 over there by Toscana at one point, a couple of years ago. Is there much left, RC2?
Okay, so RC2 used to encompass almost like 1,500 acres. It's down to about 215 acres now. We were, there's three commercial districts at least are being phased out, so RC2 is one, RC is another, and limited commercial. The last year we eliminated the last of the limited commercial districts, so there's now no more of that. And there's roughly 90 acres of RC currently existing. So with the CMA change, there'd be another about 45 acres left of that. And 200 or so acres of RC2, but remember where some of that is located. Some of it is completely residential areas, Pinecrest Drive, some other places that, so it's going to be a mixed, how that ends up will probably be, I would guess it's going to be half and half commercial, half done in residential.
Voting on the motion? We did not vote, did we? Did we vote?
No. Need to vote.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Thank you.
Okay, Article 37, which is map page 10 in your packet, is property located on Bartlett Road. This is currently.
And did this receive a positive motion? Was the public hearing closed?
This was continued
Okay, to when?
February 8th.
Okay.
You want to skip over this one, or?
Yeah, why don't we? Because I think it'll be better use of everybody's time.
Yep.
Is that all right with everybody?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
The next one on page 38 is in that same vicinity of a Marble Way. You've heard a lot of discussion
Yep.
about that. That is still open as well and continues to February 8th.
Okay. Since this was a citizen article that came before this group, I just kind of reverse. But anybody have any questions about comments on this before, and maybe input we could give the planning board? Cliff?
Yeah. Just listen to the individuals that brought up the article. They seem to realize that, it's a little late for what's already happened and things that have already been filed. And not to put you in a spot, but do you feel that there's some sort of a movement to change it for the rest of that zoning and make it a little more tame, or do you think it's just going to stay?
Well, the issue with that is, we discussed the pros and cons of pursuing a zoning change at this location, and that there were people who had bought property and might take actions to grandfather their uses in, and that in fact has happened. So it's a question now of, did the conditions, did the uses that the planning board allowed, are they protective enough of the neighborhood? Obviously, they're not residential, but I think we put a lot of conditions on that limited hours, that limited the type of businesses that are operating there, so they're not customer businesses. They can't have multiple businesses. They can't use normal accessory uses. So again, we tried to make it as low impact as possible, but that has always, since zoning was adopted, it's been a split street. So you have the commercial, we had RC2 before the CTEC, which allowed retail stores, restaurants, bars, all kinds of other things, and that was scaled back in 2012. So I don't you know, some of these, I think the majority of these properties, and then we did hear from the person on the corner that they wanted to stay in C-Tech as well, so, and they're filing a perimeter plan. So, again, I think, you know, it's all about the scale of the, it seems to be all about the scale of the business and the intensity right now. So.
And at the public hearing, people, butters and others on Marvel Way, plus people from Somerset and Bartlett, is it Bartlett Road? All came before the planning board. They were, you know, all got a chance to express their opinions in a very professional way. They were, the planning board responded very professionally, seemed to be very open to their concerns, and I think that was my observation from attending that meeting.
Quick question. I'm sort of curious, over time, maybe not always this specific example, but given that zoning, I presume, on Nantucket has evolved over the years, and you end up with neighborhoods where a residence sits next to a structure that's a shop or a boathouse, whatever. I mean, is the usual way that these things are resolved to try to find some way to restrict the business use so that the residents don't find that they have a factory next to them, so to speak? Or, I mean, you really can't force the person who bought the commercial property to not pursue the use that they bought it for.
I mean, this is where the special permit is important, because at least there's an opportunity to put conditions on it, you know, to minimize the impact. I think the conditions we put on are ones that you wouldn't find if it was all commercial on all sides, you know. So I think the board is very sensitive to, you know, there's going to be properties that where the commercial and the residents share the same boundary, right? And that's usually where there's problems. I mean, the one that comes to mind from downtown is, you know, the Brotherhood, where we have the issue of, you know, it's the way it is. They share property lines between a commercial and a residential zone. So you have to take extra precautions to make sure to minimize the impacts. But there are going to be some, you know, on those boundaries. So
again, however this thing gets decided finally, the property owner that put forward this article, ultimately there's going to be some compromise. I mean, you know, it's not like we were ever going to make the commercial properties go away, even though it sounds like that's what you would like.
Right, unless if the property owners didn't take effective steps to protect their interests, right, and the zoning change, then they would be left with just residential options. But what we have seen is that they did take active steps to protect their interests, so they are going to be some commercial uses there.
Thanks. So we'll defer this till after the public hearing?
Yeah, and this one, I think you can understand, this is, you know, been a complicated one.
Yeah.
This may in fact
March.
end up going probably to the March meeting.
Okay.
So this may take a while.
Yeah.
Page 12 is the property here at 2 and 4 Fairgrounds, and includes some properties over on Tacoma Way. So basically, the RC2 would be.
And this is 30. Is this 36?
No. 39, but it's 12.
39?
No, the article. Oh, this is
The article.
article number
39.
39. Oh, it is okay.
So this is phasing out this RC2, so the bulk of the property would become CN, commercial neighborhood, which is the green shaded area, so you can see it sort of infills in between the other CN portions, which is Amelia Drive and properties on Old South Road. And then the properties on Tacoma Way, since they face other residential properties, those would go to R5. So, and there's some R5 there now. We changed the zoning a couple of years ago for property where the Habitat House is and another housing in Nantucket on the corner. So it'll be residential closest to other residential, and then CN for the main body of the property. The advantage to that is that it does allow the town to benefit from the rental residential community bylaw that was passed at the special town meeting. So they can propose apartments if they want on that property without doing 40B. They can follow the local permit procedure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Andrew, on that, the lots along Tacoma,
Yep.
not including the Habitat and the Housing Nantucket, but the ones shown there, are those, they're included in this?
They're included in the rezoning. They would go to R5.
And I know in the past there was an affordable housing restriction or something on
Yep.
those. Is that still in
Still in
effect?
Yes.
And I think there was a question, if I'm, I think there was a question at the public hearing about why you didn't square it off at the bottom where it says R5, and that was, as I recall, it was related to a path, or is that
Yeah.
this?
The bike path goes through that particular corner,
Okay.
and we really are following the lot lines. It makes it
Right.
really
I just wanted,
complicated.
people had a question about that, that's, okay. And is this, did you close the public hearing on this with a positive recommendation?
Closed and positive recommendation.
Okay. Any questions before we take a vote for a positive comment? Yes.
Is this now considered one piece of land? Because weren't these two pieces at one point, or are they still two pieces?
They are 3 pieces of land right now.
Okay.
Okay. There's a piece around the police and fire station. There's a separate piece around the 2FG. Then there's sort of an L-shaped piece that goes kind of behind it all.
So you said it gives us an opportunity, maybe I'm confused, on this piece to do different things with housing? There's no covenants on this fire station, police station property that kind of keeps it as a fire station, police station? It gives us more leeway to even do more stuff?
Yeah, this, in terms of scale, remember, this is a very big piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
And the fire station isn't drawn on here yet, but it's, that building is the 2FG building, that diagonal building. So the area that they're looking at is sort of, in the, I guess, southwest of the fire station property. The land that runs in the back is fairly narrow in depth. You can see it's sort of already started by that R5 extension.
Any other questions? Anybody like to make a motion to make a positive comment supporting the planning board?
Yeah, so
John, is there a second?
Second.
Craig, any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you.
Article 40 hits on the topic that we talked about a little bit, which is changing certain R1 properties, residential 1 to residential old historic. And in most cases, this is the ROH district follows the original line of the historic district passed in 1955. So it follows the midline of streets. And it really what really should have happened is it should have gotten houses on both sides of the street. So what this article does in the locations outlined in red is converts them from their R1 status to ROH. And if you go to look at any of these areas, you see that they have the characteristics of ROH, which is very small front yard setbacks or houses directly on the street. They have higher ground cover than is allowed in R1. They're all single-family homes or single-family homes in separate cottages. R1 allows duplexes. These really aren't the best locations for that. And they really match what's going on the opposite side of the street.
Craig.
I'm just curious, Andrew, so like where Mill Hill Lane is and where New Mill Street continues, why wouldn't that be included? Isn't it sort of all the same?
It's a little bit different up there, and there's a new subdivision up there that we have to think about as well.
Yep.
So we did not include all of that. That is likely, it's newer construction, and it's a little bit different in character.
yeah, I think it might change.
With the build out up there, there's a build out going on a new subdivision that's just been laid
Yeah,
out up there.
oh yeah, I've been over it.
And that probably will end up going in a different direction than ROH.
Was this the article where you had conversations about the jurisdiction over decisions related to swimming pools?
It does.
And maybe
that-
will you kind of just for the edification of this committee kind of lay that out?
Yep. In the ROH district and SOH district in Wisconsin, pools are not allowed. So there are use that is not allowed in those particular areas.
By zoning?
Through zoning.
By zoning,
Correct.
okay. But did I hear that people are, in anticipation of this, might be out getting applications made for
Well,
pools?
there's two articles that would have included a pool controversy. So in this article, the R1 to ROH, the swimming pool prohibition in the ROH district was adopted probably 5 years ago at town meeting, and it was brought forward the year before that. The planning board voted to take no action, and we did a survey of all property owners in the ROH district. As it turned out, it was overwhelmingly supported, so that was adopted by town meeting the following year.
And if anything, that also, my view, precipitated the conversation about bringing some of the old historic homes into the ROH, because it was like, gosh, why isn't that a house across the street from me? And
Right.
so,
We've expanded this in several locations over the years.
yeah.
And generally, the people are supportive of the pool prohibition. But the article that I think you're talking about is the next one.
Okay.
Pool prohibition in the-
Oh, okay. John?
We've heard only support from the courtesy letters that we sent in.
Yeah, okay.
We've heard no one that asked to be removed.
Right, okay.
From this
Yeah.
particular person.
John?
When you look at this, the question, I think I know the answer, but I'd like you to tell me, what's the purpose of this particular article? I mean, what purpose does it serve?
Well, R1 is a district that we want to phase out as well, okay? We have, it's a district that we're trying to align all the districts to be it's either ROH or R5, R10, R20, R40. So those are descriptive and, are consistent on lot sizes. The R1 district is sort of an in-between one. It's sort of a repetitive district that we want to phase out. So here, the HDC treats all of these areas as part of their old historic core in terms of their standards of review. So we basically want to join these areas with, you can see it's the light green area. We want to include them in one zoning district with their comparable properties. And that's what it does.
Yeah, we have one area here, one R1 area that you're not changing.
Well, there's several that we're not changing yet because they may not go to ROH, they may go to R5.
Okay,
And that's a separate article.
okay. Gotcha.
And did you close the public hearing and have a positive recommendation? So is there a motion to support that with a comment?
So moved?
Joe? Is that Joe? And a second? Cliff?
Second.
Oh, Peter? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Thank you.
Okay, the next one, Article 41, is a proposal to rezone a section of Quidnet. And this was probably our most active article, which generated a lot of comments. This particular area is in a town district, residential 20, located in the country overlay district. So it's inconsistent with the zoning districts for our zoning goals, basically, from the master plan. So we had met with some property owners and asked them to consider a master plan, a neighborhood area plan. They didn't quite get that together. And some people said, well, could you put the idea out there so we can see, we think everybody out here supports it. And so we did. And not everybody supports it.
Yeah.
Okay, lots of different opinions. And basically, what the board decided to do was to say, we're going to refer this matter to the NPDC for an area plan. We want you all to get together, you know what our goal is, which is to get this zoning district changed to something that fits your neighborhood, and we want you to work on it and come back with a proposal to us. So the board is recommending no action with a referral to the planning commission to get that area plan process done.
Could you outline just briefly the pros and cons of?
Yeah. So the residential 20 district is a town, like I said, it's a town overlay district. It covers areas basically, I'm trying to think of the standard, it's like a half-acre zoning district. So it covers areas like on the western side of town, Friendship Lane is a good example, suburban kind of half-acre layout. It's really a poor fit for this particular area. The changing it to the village residential is consistent with what we did in Nantucket. We changed R20 there to village residential. What that does is it reduces the total ground cover from about a 20% reduction from 12.5 to 10%. There could be a lower height there, which is 25 feet in Nantucket, so it reduces it from 30 to 25. Again, with the idea of a village character. There was a discussion about swimming pools, which was another part of the controversy, and that's Article 42, which we'll talk about in a minute. So that's generally it. It's to just try to tailor a district more towards the.
And Wauwinet Village is.
Wauwinet Village is R1, also out of line with that.
Yeah.
And we did do a major change around the edges of that in, I want to say, what, 3 or 4 years ago, where we implemented, I think, LEG 1 out there. So that core remains a challenge too. Anyway, it needs a little more study.
John, just a curiosity, part of this is a fairly, I don't want to say densely populated, but it does look like a village in some areas. But when you get out further along Quidnet Road, that's a little more, again, rural. But you've included kind of, in my mind, some of that along with the more densely part that's right up the front. Is there a particular reason for that? Or?
Oh, we followed where the existing R20 is right now.
Okay.
So R20, the larger area on the outside, just so you know, recently got subdivided a lot, and people said, "Whoa, what happened?" It's like, well, you're in the district that allows that. So again, that's the limits of the existing R20.
So that's part of the controversy, is the people that own the big lots that are subdividable don't necessarily want to restrict everything so that the village type people are happy to leave it all quaint and sort of the way it's been for 50 years.
Yeah. I mean, there's a question. We have some LEG 1 to the north along Swan Road. So, should some of it become LEG 1, some of the larger properties? That's, a possibility. Or should there be maybe just a smaller portion that becomes a different district in the center? So, there needs to be some more work.
Yeah. You're trying to get a consensus amongst them.
Right.
But by pushing it off, do you invite people to put in plans at this point under the existing land use to preserve their rights?
There's always that risk, but I'll tell you that we just got a whole bunch of perimeter plans that came in now on the pool issue, which is coming up. So it's always a risk, but I'll tell you we have much less of that when we sit down and have an area plan done with the neighbors.
So this has been referred to the NPDC.
Right. So it is no action. If
Okay.
somebody really wants to pursue it, they could certainly call it
Okay.
and ask for a vote.
So do we need to comment on that? Do we comment on just the?
I think
Help me
that
remember.
you agree with the concept that it needs
Okay.
more
All right.
study.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You support the planning board.
So is there a motion to that effect?
Yeah, so moved.
Peter, John, and second from
Second.
Peter. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. All right.
So
Let me go back to, we talked a little bit about height restrictions on the mid-island, the 40 feet. Did you, and that was coming
No, I
up?
skipped over that because we didn't have
Okay.
it now. So,
Okay.
but we can go back to that. It's Article 36.
We go back to 36?
And has the public hearing been closed on that?
It's not-
Okay. Okay, so, oh, you don't have it in here. Okay, so we'll bring it up later.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay?
Okay, so Article 42 was this was the issue about expanding the, essentially prohibition of swimming pools to the village residential district.
And you don't have a map on this, no?
We don't have a map.
Right, okay.
Basically, since we're not moving forward, and a lot of people in the Quidnet, again, we had heard that there was a lot of people that didn't want to see pools in Quidnet, and we had mixed comments. I mean, it's really running about 50-50, and I think it could be some of the larger lot owners further inland believe that, but actually we have a few in the village part as well that don't want to see that. So, because this particular article was really geared towards Quidnet, there's other village residential areas that we haven't had any sort of conversation with, including Nantucket.
Like Nantucket, yeah.
So we basically recommend no action on this article this year. There was someone at the public hearing with a client in Nantucket that wanted to pursue it. You know, if he wants to call it on time, it's always a possibility.
Okay. What's the main argument about pools? Are they some kind of Satan ritual or something? It seems people just hate pools. I don't understand.
Well, we did have a discussion at the planning board, and basically, from the land use side, there can be impacts on the smallest of lots. This is what happened in ROH, is that, you know, on 5,000 square foot lots with very small setbacks, it can be, you know, it can be a land use impact.
Yeah, we remember the discussion about the old House of Orange
Right.
that built a pool that backed up to the Episcopal Church, St. Paul's.
And that's actually the pool that brought on this whole discussion
Yeah.
that led to the adoption of the
Right.
pool prohibition.
Right.
And we followed through with a pretty comprehensive survey of the residents that lived there, and the overwhelming answer was they felt that it was an impact and wanted it changed. We have not had that level with our, you know, village residential group, and that can be a half acre to larger. And it starts, our crossover members that are on the HDC feel that it has historic impact. And our response is maybe it's best dealt with through your own historic regulations then. So I'm not sure that, and as we get into larger lots, it has the same land use impact. It may have some historic impacts that they will have to articulate.
So the planning board voted to take no action
No action.
on this, and does this committee want to support that?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, thank you.
Article 43 is Grove Lane. 16 and 17 in your packet. Grove Lane is a very low-density district with wetlands and other conservation land. The road itself is a private road of increasingly impassable status. This article was to reduce the overall density along that particular corridor, which is very low density right now. There may be impacts to this area if sewer is eventually extended here. At R40, you know, there's still development potential on these lots. It's just not as intense as R20. So it does change the ground cover, drops that by 20%. It does increase the lot from a half acre to is more consistent with the lot sizes that are here right now. The planning board has closed this and given a positive recommendation.
Questions?
Just, the map is a little confusing where you've Xed out some things. How should it?
It should follow, it actually follows
The boundary on the south?
on page 17. It's the areas outlined in blue.
So it jumps. Yeah.
So what's the rationale for it? Did you exclude?
We excluded essentially the rear.
Was this the one that's really a path? Or that there's a garage, or, I mean, there's a,
There are two
not a garage, but
properties there.
Well, where the X is that with that particular property, we would have had to rezone portions of that property. So the zoning line would have cut it in half, essentially. And the property owner basically was opposed to that and is actually following a course to preserve the property in another way that made her not want to be included. So board took it out.
okay. And you, so we make a motion to support the planning board action?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you.
Article 44, page 18 and 19 in your packet. Rezones a section of Sconset. This particular area is already basically meets the SR1, this is a citizen article. Basically meets the zoning standard. It was basically became all non-conforming in a zoning change done in the 1980s. So in many of these properties, and this is in a half-acre district, and again, you can see these are all smaller properties. It's a consistent area, and basically, the board, I think we close this and positive recommendation. Yeah, found there's a minimal impact here. It just really is a uniform neighborhood and ought to be put in a zoning district that matches all the properties match.
I would just point out that the citizen petition referenced changing the properties to SR5. SR5 doesn't exist.
Right.
So SR1 is the comparative district.
But it says,
The acronym stands for Small Residential.
Sconset.
Sconset. Okay. Small Sconset residential.
And didn't you hear testimony at least from abutters or maybe a representative, the sponsor of this article, that there were others in the neighborhood that supported this and hoped that in further zoning articles you might include their properties?
Yeah, an attorney, I believe,
Okay.
testified that, but the property owners up to Lottie Lane.
Right, okay.
Be interested. Those are also all pre-existing.
Okay.
non-conforming.
Yeah, so that might be something for the future. So.
The property directly to the west, you can see there.
then what you're doing is cleaning it up.
To reflect its current use.
So will this article have to be edited on the town meeting floor from SR5 to SR1 to make the language correct? Is that?
No, the planning board motion fixes it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to support the planning board action?
So moved.
Made by Cliff and seconded by Peter. So I'm mentioning for Terry's benefit the names, because so we have our consistent reflected in the minutes. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
So Article 45 continues zoning changes that we've done, which are really cleanup articles for a number of years of taking open space properties that are located within the town overlay district and moving them to the lowest density district. So on page 20, 21, and 22 of your packet are the three areas. So these are either properties some of these are recent land bank transactions, which is shown on map 20. And other properties that are either low, they're either already low density, have wetlands, or are existing protected areas. Planning board has closed this and given us a positive recommendation.
Comments, questions? Anyone would like to make a motion to support the planning board motion? So moved, or a comment? Joe, was that? Craig, second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Article 46 is essentially the same concept in the country overlay district. There are 5 maps that go with this. The first one, page 23, area of Quidnet. The outlying properties are owned by the land bank or the town. On page 21, is property owned by the land bank. On page 25, are properties owned by Land Bank Conservation Foundation. Same for 26. And then in page 27, these are either Land Bank, Nantucket Conservation Trust Foundation properties or town properties in the map.
And Andrew, when you move these properties to Lug 3, what does that make them undevelopable? It just doesn't mean anything to me, so.
Well, it doesn't make them completely undevelopable, but it lowers the density to the lowest possible threshold.
Right.
So if there's ever, why don't we build on that or turn it into housing or something? Probably has to be a companion article to rezone it to. So make sure at least there's a conversation about that in terms, it takes a lot of effort to get these properties put into open space before they come out. We want to make sure there's a broader discussion of that.
Okay. Was there any public testimony on this? No. Okay.
We've been doing these for, I think, consistently for probably 5 or 6
Okay. Is there a motion to support the planning board action?
So moved.
Cliff, and who'd like to second that?
Second.
Joe. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you.
Article 47 is a cleanup article, and it's map 28. This is an article that we did last year, and there was some confusion about the property shape. There were 2 different plans. Our GIS has it actually shown incorrectly, and so what's happening here is the area outlined in red would be zoned for village residential, which would be joined with the property to the south. And the main reason for that is that there's 2 houses on that, the little tiny house.
Yeah.
They need to be in the same zoning district in order to do what the owner wants to do, which is to expand one of them. The back portions are currently in LUG 3, and again, the idea was to sort of align this property completely so it's in one district, not in split districts like that. So the back property would go from LUG 3 to VTech, which is where the greenhouses and other buildings are.
Yep.
Then there's a small piece outlined in green that would go out of the VTech, and that's actually owned by the land bank, and would go to LUG 3. So it's really just a cleanup article.
To your knowledge, did the property owners support this?
Yes, he was there at the planning board meeting, and the planning board closed the hearing. And
Okay. So hearing that, is there a positive motion to approve or support the planning board action?
Second.
Craig and John, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you.
The next article is 48. It's includes a subset of some of the articles that we saw last year on Evergreen and Dowdville Way.
Yeah.
This group of citizens has proposed I guess, a smaller group of articles as a transition between what's happening with Richmond and then the rest of the area that would stay in the LUG2 district. So the proposed parcels outlined here would go from their LUG2 status to R40. Planning board did, after some testimony, the planning board closed the hearing and did give us a positive recommendation.
So this came as a citizen article?
Correct.
And I think this was something we deferred to you all. We didn't take I don't remember, did we have testimony from a citizen on this? So I think we just, is that correct? Anybody? Okay. All right. So,
I think in general, Mr. Chairman, too, I mean, the area in blue is half acre.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the area in pink is a commercial district, that's the Nantucket Inn. And then the area shown as R5 and CN is basically the Richmond properties over on the western side.
right.
And the property owners, I think, made a compelling argument that, you know, they have a lot of activity going on around them, and they're stuck with a 2-acre lot. You know, other people have half acre and much less. And what they're asking for, again, is a transition between the larger 2-acre behind them and what is, you know, directly connected to them. So.
And this zoning change, it conforms with all of your kind of tenants in terms of.
Yeah, this current LUG2 is out of, you know, it's out of compliance. This is a town overlay district. It's an area that's within the sewer district. We are making, as part of the sewer articles, we're proposing to take the south side of Evergreen out of the sewer district. So again, if that property wants to stay in the country overlay district, we can sort of get that aligned. But like I said, this particular group of residents feel they have a higher impact than the others.
So they just want to subdivide it.
Well, they have a question of fairness, and so some of them do want to subdivide. They've mentioned for their families and other things. It is part of what they want to do.
And I'm assuming the rest of the LUG2 along Evergreen didn't want to participate. They were happy with the way things are.
I assume. I mean, when the full area was included, we didn't hear a lot of testimony. So, and there were some people in there, some people that, you know, had expressed opposition to the article, and they're not included. So.
Cliff?
I guess it looks easy right off that you change it to from 2 to 1, but is there actually legal frontage? I mean, these lots are pretty deep, so when you change half these lots on Evergreen, do you still have legal frontage to do that, or are they going to start looking like pork chops?
Well, they have to have 75 feet of frontage, and they have to meet regularity. So I'm not sure if they all can do that, but that's what they would have to do.
Just a quick, this may be a typo issue. The Article 48 says Lug 2 to R40, but the legend on the map says Lug 2 to Lug 1. So which is it?
Your
R40?
finance committee.
That's
Your finance committee at work. That's what we do.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
It's the only good thing we've done today.
You know,
John.
Is it a policy, is it your policy to, when people come to you and want to reduce the size of the zoning of their property, which allows them to subdivide, to go along with that? Simply because it's an economic issue with them?
Yeah. But this particular property is located in the town, I mean, we check for consistency with our existing policies and the master plan. This area is in the town overlay district, and the lowest district in there is R40.
Can you say lowest district in there? Is that
Lowest
what-
density.
Lowest density, sorry, okay, I'm not quite sure.
And a basic planning principle across planning generally, not planning on Nantucket, is to create a hierarchy of zoning where you go from the highest intensity, highest density to the least, and they abut each other. I mean, this is a situation where you have the highest intensity residential R5 abutting the lowest intensity LUG2, or one of the lowest intensity. So going from R5 to R40 will create more of a transition.
Except that you have a chunk of land right in the middle between the two that's staying the way it is.
Well, right, and one of the main reasons that wasn't included is sewer does not, because of the way the topography is, sewer does not extend there to those lots.
Really?
We've included the lots that have sewer available to them.
Is there a motion, and this public hearing was closed, did they get a positive recommendation by the planning board? So is there a motion to give a positive comment?
So moved.
And Joe, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Thank you.
Article 49 is a single lot on Nantucket Ave. It's shown on map 30, page 30 of your packet. The property owner was not present, and the board continued that to the 8th.
I'm sorry, what page was that on?
30.
30. So it's continued, okay. All right.
Similarly, the property owners, there was no representative. Again, 49 was a citizen article, 50 is a citizen article, and there was no representation there, and that was continued as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay, real estate. You want to go through the text as well? I mean, I don't think you have, maybe you need to do that when you have the text in front of you.
You have,
For the real estate?
No, so we just finished the mapping, and now the text starts at Article 51.
right.
So 51 through 60 is basically bylaw changes.
Were all these acted on by the planning board?
No, not all of them.
So if you have your warrant from Erica on your devices,
Okay, so what we did complete, Article 51, which is some changes to the tertiary dwelling. Do you all have that, or do you want me to just sort of summarize?
just take a minute to get them pulled up.
Okay, so basically what we did, when that article was passed, there was a limit put to no more than 120 permits per year. We've had about 12 applications for those, so we don't think we need to have that limit anymore. It's not, like there's a big floodgate of these coming, so we don't think that's necessary anymore. We've made some changes based on some feedback we got, which is allowing, right now tertiary dwellings are limited to, you have to have an owner occupant on the property. And basically we're changing that so it could be owned by a not-for-profit organization, a religious or educational entity, or it could be subject to a restriction limiting occupancy to a year-round household. So if a seasonal person wants to build one and they're willing to put the restriction on it, then it can be allowed. That's a way to encourage them. Okay. We're also proposing to increase the square footage from 550 to 650. Many of the ones that people have come in with have had, they're over 550 and hovering around 600 or so, and mainly because that's the gross floor area, so it includes all the mechanical areas and everything, so I think the 650 is actually a number that works better. I guess that's it for this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Andrew, how does the enforcement of the restriction on the year-round household, how does that work? Who enforces that?
There would have to be a restriction granted to the town, and it becomes essentially a zoning violation. So when they get a building permit, they would have to present the fact that they've given a restriction. The selectmen have to accept that. It has to be reported, and then it would be enforced like any other zoning provision.
So this is Article 51?
Yep.
And you, there's a positive recommendation? Oh, no, this is the one we make the positive recommendation. This is our planning board. It doesn't take action on these, do they?
Yeah, this is a zoning change, zoning bylaw.
Okay, is it zoning? I'm sorry, I thought it was real estate. Okay, so, and they, could you, I was busy looking at,
We closed the hearing on this and gave it a positive recommendation.
okay. Any questions on this article? Lisa, is there a motion through comment to support the planning board action?
So moved.
Cliff and Joe?
Sure.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Aye.
Thank you.
Article 50s, or Articles 52 and 53 were the citizen articles regarding tiny house units. We met with the article sponsor, and those have been continued over to the 8th.
Okay.
The main change that we're still needing some input from our building inspector about building code issues is having the portability of these units, so they're built on some sort of a trailer type frame where they could be picked up and moved, and whether that's something that can be accommodated in building code or not. One of the main reasons for the board not voting positively on the citizen article from last year is the issue of them being moved around on wheels. And the proponent has said that's not his intent, but he wants it on some sort of a frame, so we're still wondering about that. That would be building code.
So does that create a legal issue as far as being a camper or not being a camper, and now we got to allow people to have campers?
That's one of the concerns.
I would, yeah, I remember him making that promise, and I didn't buy it.
You can make the promise all
I'm not
he
the only one that
wants.
didn't buy it, I just wanted to say it. I think he wants to build trailers, and that's what he wants to do.
Any discussion about tornadoes?
Might have dropped them. Not yet.
There's some truth to that.
It is.
I lived in Kansas, so. All right.
Okay, so Article 54 is regarding making some changes with secondary lots. And these are the lots that you can create with a housing covenant. So the basic changes that we made, there were some...
And did you have was the public hearing closed on this one?
Public hearing is closed on this,
Okay,
and this has
okay.
a positive recommendation.
Okay.
So I'd say in general what was done here is to make it more flexible. What we have said, the way it was originally structured is you could take your lot that had the capacity for a primary and a secondary dwelling, divide it so the bigger lot could have would still be a market rate lot restricted to one dwelling unit. A smaller lot, which generally would have a secondary dwelling, would be the covenant lot. Okay. What we have found is that there's people that want to do it differently.
Yeah,
Some
right.
people say, I want the big lot to be the covenant lot and the smaller lot to be the, the market rate lot. Or I want, and I'm stuck with this, with the minimums, and maybe couldn't they be adjusted a little bit? So we basically took away the chart and have adopted a general standard. I think it was, what was it, Leslie, 40%? So you basically, except for in the basically R5, ROH, VR, R20, R10, R40, and LEG1, it's basically a 40% standard for the lots. So you could do your bigger or smaller lot is roughly 40% of that. In the LUG 2 or 3, you can do a minimum size lot of 20,000. So if you want to just do a 2-bedroom covenant lot in an area that you have to have a lot of land, you don't have to give up you don't have to give your land up based on that percentage. If you want to do a smaller 2-bedroom house, you can do 20,000 square feet. Okay. And then the other part of this is that we are saying that you can do since we've allowed tertiary dwellings, that you could, that either of the lots could have a tertiary dwelling, which again, you have to come in for a special permit to request that. So you would assign which lot you want to have one of those if that's what people want to propose.
So you couldn't do a tertiary dwelling on both lots?
You cannot. You can pick one where you could have, because again, what we're saying is, if your lot is eligible for a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary, we're not changing the overall density. We're saying you could still have that basic 3 lots, but you could divide it up as long as you're putting the covenant on in order to take advantage of it. So the covenant lot could have the tertiary if they want that particular property owner to have the income, or the market rate lot could keep the tertiary dwelling with it. And then there's some flexibility on how you assign the ground cover to. So again, we're letting the property owner make those choices.
And if the tertiary lot goes with a covenant, does that get bound by the covenant? Isn't that an affordability covenant?
Yes.
So then the tertiary becomes an affordable dwelling as well?
Well, no, the tertiary would still have to abide by all the other regulations. It would have to have year-round use. It would have to have a year-round person present, have to be used for that. But it doesn't have an income restriction on it like the covenant house would.
Even though it may sit on the same component of the lot.
I mean, it's generally there to provide some income to the covenant house owner, which is what it's.
Okay.
I saw it in the text, 2C1 purpose, if you struck the language, if they wish to do so. Can you just explain kind of the history of how that got in originally and how you decided to take it out?
Leslie likes to strike out language that doesn't have a lot of meaning, and that doesn't really.
But it seemed to be, this tightens up the requirement, and before there was, if they wish to do so, there was no restriction. The way I interpret that, to help those people who reside to continue if they wish to do so.
The 150% covenant units have a restriction that you have to live on Nantucket 10 months out of the year.
Okay.
It's sort of implied in the covenant.
Oh, okay. So this really was meaningless because that trumps this language. Okay. So this has had a positive recommendation. And
Just
yes, sir.
Kind of so if you go back to the tertiary dwelling on a covenanted property, so I'm assuming that once you covenant a property, you don't then have to continue to demonstrate meeting the 150% of median.
You only have to meet it at the time you're qualified. You don't have to continue to meet it annually.
Okay, so, and I don't know how significant this is when I'm going to use the word gaming the system. I don't mean it in that pejorative a way, but you could qualify for, for a covenant lot and then build a tertiary dwelling as income and never have to go back and demonstrate that you, in fact, now are 150% of median household income.
I mean, what may at some point become prohibitive is the covenant units have a maximum resale price cap. So it may not make sense for the covenant house to have this other dwelling with it, because when they go to sell it, it's going to be a maximum price and they may not get their investment back. So that's something that the person who's laying this all out to begin with might think about.
And that the tertiary dwelling is under the limits of the covenant mark cap? Okay, I was confused. I thought you said that, I thought you said that having the tertiary on the covenant portion meant that on resale, they had to have there was a cap on the market.
Yeah, the cap would be on the sale of the lot, not each unit. So if you can only sell the whole covenant lot for, $600,000, are you going to get your $600,000 back if you have the primary dwelling and then the tertiary dwelling?
Okay, but both improvements of the dwelling go with the market rate. You could put so you can't get more than, no matter, you can have two units on there, you're still going to have the $600,000 to whatever $1,000 cap.
On the
Yes.
covenant lot,
On the
yes.
total,
On the-
total,
That may include a covenant house and a tertiary dwelling. Okay.
but there's no the owner of the covenant house has the restriction on income, but there's not an income restriction on the rental.
No, I understand that, yeah.
And he only has or she has the restriction at the date that they apply
Right.
for it.
Okay. And this had a, John?
And and the rental has to be for at least 10 months of the year. I hear you say
If
that.
you get a covenant, you can't sublet that covenant house out. 10 months.
And what is the,
That's what I thought I heard, I just wanted.
and what about, is there any restriction like that for the tertiary dwelling? Okay.
But the affordability, I always thought the affordability restriction, getting back to this, so you build for hypothetical, you build the secondary, this covenant home has a value of $450,000, and then you build this tertiary dwelling for $200,000, right? So now you've got $650,000 that's deed restricted by that's a multiplier formula, right? I mean, you go out, have the income and the blah, blah, blah. And so the total value you can sell that two-structured deeded property is $650,000 times whatever the factor is when you finally sell it 10 years out.
Right. And
So you're always going to get you can get your, I guess what I'm getting back to what Leslie said, you can get your investment back. You may never be able to make much money on it because your resale is going to be restricted.
Right, and a lot depends right now on the interest rate. Like the interest rates are so low, which is partially what has allowed the covenant, the maximum sales price to rise. So that could change and bring that down.
Right. No, I think I get the picture. So just.
And I know I've asked this question of you before. I don't remember the answer to it, so I'm going to do it again. And that is, we have these great programs that have got regulations around them. Enforcement mechanisms. So I know we're good in the town of having great programs with restrictions, and then nobody enforces them.
Well, there's two restrictions. So that the covenant units are I guess the compliance agent is Housing Nantucket. It's their program, and they would follow up on that. So, and they have. I mean, if we get reports that people are, renting their house out or doing something like that, we will investigate. And that's part of. We've expanded our zoning enforcement group, so it's not just the one position; it's any of the building inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and those, if we find it, it's, the owner usually has 30 days to correct the situation. They're subject to $300 day fines afterwards. So, for each day that, non-compliance is there. So, it depends on, how they're using the tertiary dwelling, if it's, again, if there are homeowners present there, they can use it, and there doesn't have to be that restriction. But I will tell you that, we, at least where we have the covenant units, I mean, we people are abusing it, we hear about it. And there's been
people want it. Any other questions? Is there a motion to support the planning board action?
So moved.
Joe, second by?
Second.
Second by Peter. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Article 55.
So article, the next one,
Oh, the next two.
Okay.
55 and 56 are continued. Those are just, so these are both citizen articles that talked about providing certain exemptions for conveying a covenant home to family members. And there were some numerous questions that came up about this that required some town council input
Okay.
as well as.
So we'll just come back to these after your, okay.
Those probably will be March.
Okay.
Some complications with those that has to
All
be
right.
looked at.
Article 57.
So Article 57 is a classic Leslie article where it says.
And did this get a positive recommendation?
No, this is continued.
Okay.
I was wondering whether that was
let's go
starting
on
a
to-
positive or negative comment, so. Classic Leslie article.
It's a classic with lots of strikeouts.
Okay. Article
So,
58.
We can return to 58. Did we close that one out? I think we did. Adult use.
Yes.
Okay.
So, adult use, always a topic.
Oh, adult use. Yes.
So, yeah, right. Yeah, what was it? They wanted me to say porn. So, 58, we received feedback from the Attorney General. I don't know if you all saw that, but when the Attorney General approved our zoning changes last year, they pointed out there had been a recent case that struck down another community's adult use bylaw. This adult uses, a case involving the Supreme Court, says that communities may regulate them, but they cannot make regulations so strict that it can't be allowed anywhere. So there's usually a test where you say, we don't want them in certain districts, we don't want them near certain things like churches and schools, but you have to make some allowance for them to go somewhere. And you can't make the restrictions so onerous or arbitrary that, in essence, you prevent them through your regulations. So the case that was settled, I can't remember the community, but they had similar things that we have. They had a lot of these distances, and basically the Attorney General warned us that you better take a hard look at your bylaw because you run afoul of the same things that they do. So this is changing it. I mean, there are only two districts where adult uses are allowed, which is the commercial industrial district, which is, out in the airport where there's other industrial type uses, and the current RC2 district, which again is on its way to be phased out. So we had to take away a lot of, I think, of the kind of arbitrary distances, and one of the main things was the special permit granting authority. They say may issue special permits, and the case made it clear that they shall issue the special permit if they make all the requisite findings. So, anyway.
Out of curiosity, is there a definition for adult use somewhere?
There is.
There is. Yep.
It's in the
It's in
bylaw.
here.
It talks about materials and certain kinds of dancing.
Adult
all
use,
kinds of-
it's defined under adult use.
And that meets the Attorney General's.
does.
Is there a motion to support the planning board action? Yes, go
Maybe I
ahead.
missed it. So when we first put it out towards the airport, there was no school out there. So are we talking about the setbacks, or you had to change them because they put schools on Nobodere Farm Road, or it was there?
It's allowed in the commercial, industrial, and that doesn't have a lot of distance issues, but it's still allowed in RC2, and that's, as we talked about earlier in the meeting, there's still residences and other things still in there. At some point in the future, when we get sort of all our commercial districts straightened out, it might have to be allowed in one of the other ones, like commercial neighborhood or something, but again, we'll have to see when we finish all our zoning.
Is there a motion to support the planning board action?
So moved.
Craig and Cliff, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right,
So Article
59.
Articles 59 and 60, I think were carried over.
Okay.
Yes, so 59 has something to do with abandoned vehicles, and 60 is miscellaneous changes, and there's a number of those, but those are continued over, so nothing further to talk about on those, unless you want to ask.
So, you go out to Larrabee's property out on Hummock Pond Road. Would they be grandfathered under this if it goes through? So there would be nothing, there's no zoning enforcement that could be brought to bear on that property?
There's a general bylaw.
There's a general bylaw that's enforceable by the police that the language proposed in this article will mirror. The general bylaw says that more than one abandoned vehicle has to be located within a building, whereas the zoning said within a building or covered by a tarp. So a lot of what's, for example, over at Wayne Lane, that's also owned by Larrabee, he's put tarps over all those. So they're still there, they're still an eyesore, but they have a tarp on them, so we can't really do much about it. I think both of those properties are currently being handled through some action that's been taken by the town. So this would definitely prevent a future situation.
What's the next one?
Okay.
Oh, do we need to take a motion on that? Did we take a motion on that? No. Yes?
They didn't do anything.
Oh, we didn't do it. Okay. All right.
Going to return to that now.
Okay.
So in your packet, so I'm now page 33, there's sort of a discussion of some of the real estate articles. So Article 88 is property at Town Nevers Head, and the map of that is shown on page 34. The intent of this article is basically to correct a missing deed situation. The property owners here deeded this land to the town back in 1981. There was a warrant article to accept the land that passed at town meeting, and then the deeds were not ever recorded. So the deeds are now stale, and the people, at least one of the persons has died. We did find a copy of the deeds, so we know that they were granted. So we do have to do a confirmatory taking to basically make sure that this property stays with the town. The second part of this is we have the ability to convey it to the land bank. They have purchased some of the land surrounding it. You can see that it's beaches and wetlands. And, so there would be a companion action to convey this to the land bank.
Typically, who would be responsible for recording the deed? How does something like that slip through the cracks?
Typically after the vote of town meeting, when the article passed, you get a certified copy of the article, and the town administration at that time would have had it followed through to make sure it was recorded.
So that would be, at the time, I guess we had a executive secretary.
Right.
And is that the standard practice today? And it would flow through the town manager to see that it was recorded, or is it flip over? You handle most of them?
We did. There were just a lot of errors that, we're kind of tuned into the real estate now as part of our assigned duties.
The public hearing, is there a motion to accept this or recommend this article?
So moved.
Cliff and John, any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Okay, Article
89.
9 is also, and I would say that, at the selectmen's direction, we didn't do a lot of real estate articles this year to try to get caught up with the ones that we've already done. The next one is really a cleanup article as well for a property at number 42 Novier Ave. You can see that map of it shown on page 35 of your handout. This property has, is a property that the owner abandoned. There was a town taking authority to convey this property in a separate article, but we need to get clear title to it, and that's what the eminent domain process is used for. So this is an acquisition article for this property. You can see it's used pretty much with the main property there, and those owners are anxious to purchase it, and through that purchasing process, we will get the back taxes paid on it and return it to usable status.
As a standalone property, does it have, could it be conveyed to somebody other than the two owners?
It does not meet Title V regulations for well and septic, so it would have limited buildability right now. We would go through a process where we would bid it and set a minimum price. So if there are others that want to pay higher price, we would certainly, I think, look at that.
And what's the size of the parcel?
5,000 square feet.
Okay. So what originally happened, the surveyor just did a bad job?
No, this is a property, like many in Surfside, that were simply abandoned by the property owners at some point. They either stopped paying taxes or,
But in the 60s, you had tax sales of these, and
right.
so.
But how did the home that's in the picture, so that individual bought the U-shaped lot and built a house on it, even though that they couldn't gain control of that little 5,000 square foot rectangle?
There's another way to get title to it, which is to claim adverse possession over a 20-year period. So I don't know what that setback is. I know it looks really close there. It could meet the 10-foot setback though, and actually be outside the line.
What does that mean, what you just said?
What?
The adverse...
Adverse possession is a principle where means what it says, you adversely possess somebody's property.
Right.
It has to be open and notorious, so it can't be a shared thing. It's like you go in, you occupy someone's property, you fence it in, you use it as your own, you adversely to the real owner's interest.
Okay.
And if you do that after continuously for a 20-year period, and you can prove it, you can go to land court and ask for the title to that land.
Oh, okay.
And there's many of those cases right now in land court. So watch your boundaries.
Wow. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, Andrew, would this be considered one of the yard sale programs, or would this be
It would be.
sold outright?
It would be a yard sale.
Yard
Other questions? So,
And this went through the real estate,
It will go through there for final price setting and everything.
no, but it's gone through the first time round to those guys?
The acquisition, I don't know that we discussed the acquisition of this yet. I don't think we did.
but as we said earlier, that that wasn't a committee that was set up by the Finance Committee. It was, I think, set up by the Board of Selectmen, the Real Estate Committee, citizens, so.
They will review the price that we set.
Right. So they were,
Before it's sold.
that's really their role, but it's up to us to decide if that's a transaction we want to.
But didn't we agree that we wanted before we took any action, we wanted to hear from that
We did.
committee? Except this hasn't gone through that committee yet. If I'm
They're
interpreting.
meeting soon, so.
Yeah, is this something,
Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's going to be a controversy about it, but
Right.
it seems to me if that's what we agreed to do, then let's just
But I think-
follow our procedure.
yeah, I agree, but we also said that those would be coming through Andrew, so why don't you ask them to, on our behalf, to make a finding, and we'll look forward to that recommendation, but coming from you.
Do that. Okay, the next article is on page 36. These are citizen article, companion article, articles 95 and 96. These were reviewed by the real estate committee. These have positive recommendations. subject to retaining an 8-foot path down the center line of it, which continues a path that goes to the south. So, again, this is a standard paper street type article submitted by citizens in this case. And that's at the end of a dead-end street. So, and the map of that shows on page 37. Gives you the overall dimensions.
Oh, yeah.
And these were citizen articles that came to us, if you remember, the testimony from the sponsor.
Yes.
And I think we're waiting. Yes, sponsor. Well, I think he's listed as a sponsor. Yeah. So that's who we heard from, and the testimony, and I think given that testimony and given the recommendation from staff, is there a motion to approve both Articles 796 and 97?
So 95 and 96.
95.
Sorry, 95 and 96. Peter, and second from who? Joe? Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you.
Article 99 was a citizen article, and this deals with acquisition of property.
No, 97 and 98, Poplar. Those were also citizen articles.
97 and 98, it turns out that those articles are duplicates, so basically the uses that they were, what they were trying to accomplish were already done in a prior article. So the recommendation is no action on those articles, and that is the same recommendation from the real estate committee.
So we haven't heard from the citizen sponsor of this. That's kind of who we listened to, too.
They're aware of this, and I know that
Okay.
with the fact that there's an earlier article that allows it,
Okay.
I think they're in agreement that it's not necessary.
Would it be appropriate for you to contact them and ask them to say that
I already have talked to
that
them.
with the finance committee, would like to know what their...
Yeah. I can double check it if you want, but I
Okay.
can guarantee you that.
That's fine. Just we'd like to know, since it's, as far as we're concerned, it's still something that the
Okay.
sponsor wants to do. Thank you.
So, yeah, so those are likely to be no action required at all. So the next one is 29. And this is the citizen article for the correcting the taking for certain properties. I know that the real estate committee felt that they were not going to weigh in on this particular article, so you're on your own on this one.
So again, that's we probably at some point we need to have a conversation about the real estate committee and their role and how they're appointed and what their duties are, because we asked them to. We thought there was a resource we'd be able to use. They were going to spend some of their personal time as volunteers, and we appreciated that.
I think
so
they feel
it's-
that this is really a policy level decision. It's land already owned by the town, so.
Right. No, I understand. I'm just, I'm trying to frame the conversation about.
Well, good luck with that.
We need some clarification of that. So I believe we've had this article in the past.
Yeah, there is.
And we've taken I don't think we had a positive recommendation in the past. Is that true?
This article needs to be reviewed by town council and make sure that it's not duplicating some things that have already been passed, like the cemetery purposes. I think that's already.
But didn't he already give his comment on this in terms of the triage form?
Yeah, I don't know that they know all the particular details, because there was going to be a town-sponsored article, and the main issue was the purpose of the acquisition of the land, which is really 602. If you look on page 38 of your packet, 602 is the main problem here.
Looks like a little adverse possession going on.
I was just going to say, watch your boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than adverse possession, it's,
A whole lot of
I'd say
adverse.
it's an adverse land grab.
But I think you said not, the GIS don't always, is this GIS? And doesn't always conform to the,
That's right. But,
what was the article that was related to this issue that was approved last year?
so map 55-600 has already been approved, so that's really not required here at all. That already was authorized for purchasing for cemetery purposes.
Okay, right.
So that's not needed, that was passed at a special town meeting some time ago.
Okay.
55-601 is also not needed, so I think the second part of that article is not needed at all, and it duplicates early authorization, that's okay. The issue is really 55-602. The only authority for that, I believe, was to purchase that for some sort of open space purpose, so now the authority to purchase it for general municipal use, including the right to convey it for non-profit funeral purposes or whatever, has to be granted by town meeting. Okay. And then, as far as 55-603 goes, that property is under the control of the school committee right now.
Okay, right.
And that has to be transferred from the school committee to this use. So again, I don't know that we need to do a taking over that. I think there has to be a transfer. So the main property is going to be, or the main issue to decide is going to be on 55-602.
So would the transfer of the 603 need to come at the same time as 602 to make this, I don't know what the requirements are for the purpose that's been outlined?
The only use that's been authorized by town meeting so far for 603 was for school purposes and for road purposes. So there's going to have to be something dealing with that property voted by town meeting. Maybe that can be handled in this article, but the land doesn't have to be taken. It's already
Right, okay.
It's already owned by the town
It's owned by the school first.
and under the control
Owned by
of the
the-
school.
right.
So the school committee has to take a vote that says that that property is surplus for their school purposes.
I think my question was, in order to do what, now, first of all, did town meeting, I can't remember, did they take a vote to establish a funeral home? I know we took some action last year, or the previous year.
There was, I think they did last year.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the article right now.
okay. And then, and this would be, in order to, is there some, either some zoning or some reason that all 602 and 603 needed to be for this, taken for the use for this purpose?
602 needed to have authority. Again, there's a title problem with this property.
Okay. I guess my point is there a way to say, come back to us when you've got the school, because all these things have to happen at the same time? Is there some reason for that, like you need X amount of square foot for a funeral home or something?
Well, in order for that proposal to move forward, there has to be some level of site control. And so,
Including 603?
specifically, well, 602 mainly. 602 has to be able to be used for that purpose. And so far, if you were to follow the adverse possession claim to try to get title on that, which I don't think is going to work because it's wide open, it's not really fenced in or used exclusively. It's been used really for cemetery purposes, right?
603? 602?
602, I mean, and that's a stretch because there's no burials in there.
No, yeah.
But it was loosely considered part of the cemetery property for years and years.
Oh, okay.
The current authorization that was voted by town meeting was for that to be open space or cemetery purposes, not
Okay.
for conveyance purposes to another
Okay.
entity.
Okay.
So we have to clear that up in order to do the taking. And I will tell you.
That has to be cleared up by land court or?
Well, first of all, town meeting.
Okay, all right.
And you are likely going to have to vote an authorization for damages for that property.
To who?
The heirs of the owners of it.
Oh, okay, okay.
So,
Sure.
And what, I just want to ask, so does 603, why do we need 603?
I don't think there's anything in the article that you're going to need to address unless it's a transfer related issue.
No, but my point is, why, do you know why the sponsor added 603 to this?
No.
Okay.
It was in last year's.
Yeah, but it wasn't because we need 602 and 603 to do this.
Yeah, she wants to use 603 as part of the funeral.
Or maybe as a crematorium or something.
No, that was going to be out on,
No, she wants it all together.
oh, okay, all right.
So
okay.
last year, 602 and 603, she asked for authorization to sell, lease, otherwise dispose for funeral home purposes, and this year she's added 600 and 601, right?
No,
Well,
I think they were there last week.
She repeated 600 and 601. There's prior articles that already authorized that for the purpose.
From municipal
So
cemetery, okay.
that's not necessary at all. 603 is not necessary to do a taking against, since we've already.
Right, I just, yeah.
And it's already been voted, as
Right.
you pointed out. So really what has to happen there is the school committee would have to release it from their use. And then the other article would kick in. But the problem property is 602.
Okay.
So if you are issuing a recommendation here, it will probably only be focused on 602.
Okay.
But I can't tell you what that would be yet.
And if they did, Andrew, wouldn't they have to put them out in it?
And they will have to put some sort of amount.
Can you outline for us what the issues are on 602?
Yep.
And we might want to invite to let the sponsor know when we're going to be taking some action on this.
Okay.
So,
Do we know, when I was younger, all this land down here was swamp? Does somebody like punch a hole through the clay or something like that? Because if it rains more than one day, I always thought all this was water. So if we're going to take it to build on it, it doesn't seem like, has it been designated high and dry land?
It's pretty high there, Cliff.
602?
Doesn't it slopes down towards?
Yeah. It was swamp when I was younger. It was water.
There's the cow pond, which is
In the back corner.
a little bit in there. And there is sort of a low drainage area in there. It may have to go to Conservation Commission for building. I don't know
Exactly.
what. I don't know what.
Certain liberties have been taken over here, but anyway, I won't talk about it.
so it's getting more complex and more complex, the more I hear personally, regardless, so, I mean, from a plant, yeah. All right. So,
Not to mention that I think the Finance Committee should have an interest in whether we should be enabling a prospective nonprofit to somehow take possession of land to start a funeral home, a nonprofit funeral home, that, again, speaking personally, I think has very little chance of being a successful enterprise, and in my view, exposing the town to financial liabilities when and if this thing ever becomes created. I personally think it's like another Our Island home, down the road, where you'd end up with an uneconomic business that would fall to the town to maintain.
I think we took that argument last time, and we were overruled by town meeting.
I don't think so.
Well, we took the position that it wasn't economically viable.
I think we took, well, again,
I think
we'll
we
have to
have.
check the record. I'm going from memory, but it seemed to me we voted not to approve the Sparks Avenue property, and we
Right.
voted to approve the other piece of property out by the airport.
Right.
And then in our little pre-town meeting confab,
Right.
I think we reversed ourselves on the first one and supported them both. But I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong on that one.
Do you remember? No? Okay. So we'll
Well, you
check
can
on
check
that.
the record.
Linnell, is that something you can check for us? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. So we're going to defer that. Want to get some more information from you all?
Unfortunately, I don't have a map for you for Article 100 and 101, which is, that's, again, a Clinton Cooper Street article.
Right.
The Real Estate Committee did review that and has recommended that article, but I guess you might want to take a look at the map first, so hold that
Okay,
off.
great.
And then map, page 39 is the Seneca Avenue, and that's 102 and 103. Real Estate Committee has made a positive recommendation on that article. It's really a strip running along the front part of that. It's 9 by 160 feet. The end of Seneca we actually have removed in an earlier action, so this cures a zoning violation problem for them. And that road is a dead-end road, dead-end sand road out in Cisco, so it's not really a big issue there.
So
How close is it to the beach?
How close? This is the furthest of those roads. The orientation is this way for north.
Yeah.
So the beach is, there's 4 individual roads. It's pretty far.
Okay, so it's not like people are parked, I mean, could it be used for parking to get access to the beach or anything like that?
It's at the end of this private road. The road that people traverse over is Westerwick.
Yeah.
So what does this do now? Give them, it takes and then authorizes the town to sell a 9 by 160 foot parcel of town-owned land?
Well, it's not town-owned now at all.
Okay.
It's a private road now. So
Okay.
It's, remember the paper street articles. Article number 1 is to acquire it.
Yep.
Article
Right.
number 2 is just to dispose of it.
But does this create a different lot size that you sort of kind of stick out compared to
does.
the other lots? And why would you want to do that?
Well, it's at the end of a dead-end road. It's a sand road that doesn't go anywhere. The particular lot has a zoning violation caused by their designer or whoever was involved with it. It's an undersized lot anyway.
So what's the zoning violation?
Front yard setback.
Front yard setback. So the house is not set back far enough.
Far enough. It's this is LUG, so it's a minimum of 80,000 square feet out here. So this particular lot is about 10,000 square feet.
So it's on a private road, does the town, so are the homeowners asking the town to use its powers to acquire a piece of privately owned property?
Yes.
Why aren't they being just compelled to go into the marketplace and negotiate a purchase price?
From who? The point is that this is what the taking does. It takes the road. Road is owned by multiple people with mortgages and other things. It's a very difficult and time-consuming thing.
And so
No,
what if the person next door wanted you to do the same thing?
Well, they'd have to come and ask for a warrant article and
Would you support that?
Yes. We don't need 40-foot wide roads out in this area. If you look at the original subdivision of this was all an intense grid subdivision that will never reach the
Right.
density that was laid out. And we've already removed other lots in this area. All the Sacajawea out to beyond this property, we've already removed and returned it back to taxable land. So, same principle.
So if I live on a private road and I wanted to narrow the width of the road to make it more, bucolic, I could come and ask you to, say I wanted to buy 9 feet times whatever.
And we've looked at the situation
Okay.
to figure out if it made sense or not.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, but
it's an interesting.
Yeah, but don't forget, this is all
this is all like commonly owned, the street is still commonly owned, right? This sort of solves a problem for the homeowner, not only from a zoning perspective, but also you'd have to negotiate with 50 neighbors to come up with some transaction to buy this strip of land, because it's all, the streets are all commonly owned by the homeowners, right?
Well, and to both of your points, there's not a homeowners association you could go to as a board that you can negotiate with. I mean, this is, you know, commonly owned by lots of people.
Old butters.
Old ways that have been in existence since the 1800s, so there's not a point person or a group to go to.
You could argue that the roads are still owned by the original 1875 subdivider. The heirs of that person. So.
Well, just an interesting concept I hadn't, so I guess private roads aren't as inviolable, whatever the term is, than I thought they were. I thought it was, but.
Just a question I have about all the new sewer we're proposing in Monomoy and different areas. Are we going to have a great expense of getting easements to put sewer lines all the way down?
We're going to be discussing sewers on Thursday.
Well, I just thought I'd throw it in.
Okay.
So you're talking about private
Okay.
roads and.
All right. Okay.
Anyway, we could wait, I guess.
If you want to answer that, you can, or you can come back on Thursday. So.
Well, easements over private roads may be an issue, but generally you can put utilities into private ways.
We're just looking at all the unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
Where it crosses private land, that's when you have, and again, I'm not totally familiar with where we are with the design yet, but if it's in private roads, not really too much of a problem.
And have you had any response? Have any of the abutters given any feedback on this? And were they were, I'm sure, all noticed about this.
Which one?
50, 102 and 103.
Those are citizen articles. I mean, those are your articles. We haven't given any notice to anybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Arthur was the one who sponsored.
No,
the
I know
articles.
that. Yeah, I just didn't know what so those. Okay. All right.
Who we give courtesy notices to are zoning bylaw changes that we
Okay. All
propose.
right. Okay. All right.
Zoning map changes.
So if I may, I don't want to beat this horse, but it's kind of it seems to me it's kind of an interesting area because, I'm very familiar, since I happen to live on a private road that has a homeowners association, but we've recently discovered that there's never been conveyances of the roads to the homeowners association, and now people have disappeared,
Right.
and that becomes. I'm not sure where it leads us. I mean, right now it's not a problem for anybody, but it seems like, we have so many of these. Is it a good policy long term for the town to enter in? Well, I guess you don't sponsor any of these, do you? It's all citizen.
Well, we have sponsored paper street articles in the past, and we do think it's good policy because it removes a lot of these streets that are not needed, have never been built, whatever.
Okay.
But this isn't a paper. Is this a paper street?
This is
No,
a private
it's a
way.
private
This is a
road,
private way, yeah.
So it's not really. Yeah.
So it depends on the location, and where future traffic needs, again, every location might be different. Generally, 40-foot wide, full 40-foot wide layouts are needed for streets serving a large number of lots. I mean, we've moved away from that to say that, 40-foot layouts are not necessary when we have small dirt roads, covering the two lots. So it depends on the location. There may be future traffic needs where we want to keep the right-of-way exactly the way it is. There are others that we don't need it. I mean, there were 300, when we did the study of at least the paper roads, there were 375 acres of unused, unneeded streets across the island. And, we worked to remove those.
Has the planning board ever turned any of these down?
The planning board doesn't. You don't take action on. They don't take action on these.
Well, we we take action on the A&Rs, proof not required when they come in, but most of these have all been pre-identified, so.
But these come to the finance committee, they don't go to the planning board, the real estate.
After town meeting, they come into the planning board.
No, I understand, right.
And, we have reserved, in some cases, we've reserved paths over, pathways, or the ability to install easements, utilities in the future, like underground sewer or electricity. In one case, we've also reserved an emergency vehicular access. So there are some that we reserve rights in, where necessary.
So I think, if it's all right with the group, is it all right if we kind of think about this one and come back to it at another meeting? Is anything else from you? So we have you on the schedule for tomorrow, but I think we've covered a lot of ground. I don't know if we need to ask them to come back until you've gone through your public hearings. Is that all right with everybody?
Yep.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. It was
Thanks.
nice job. Thank you. Going back to our agenda for today, our next meeting is tomorrow. The items on the agenda for tomorrow, if we take off zoning and real estate, are to hear the long-range financing report from Brian. And what is your? I don't have my minutes right. My agenda right in front of me. What's that topic specifically?
It's the debt modeling.
Okay.
To show the long-term capital plan and
Okay.
and the sewer with 60/40.
So, but sewer, we're going to do sewer on, everything on sewer is going to be Thursday, so
Right,
we don't
this
need
will
to,
show-
we don't
this
need,
is going to have the debt modeling for everything built into it, so
Okay.
it can be
all right.
probably tomorrow, since they're working on making a couple changes to it that I asked them to after reviewing it.
Okay. So will you send that to us tonight, so we'll have a chance to review it tomorrow?
I'm going to have it tomorrow at some point. They making changes that I asked them to make to it, so
Okay.
I don't have so the thing is that it probably will be it's going to be more than one meeting, because I'm going to get it tomorrow, and as soon as I have it, I'll send it to
Okay.
you. And
So
I'll-
let me ask the committee, we can begin the discussion tomorrow, or we can wait until the final draft is sent around to us, so we have a chance to see it before the meeting. I personally like to kind of see, I know some of you like to see
I'd
things.
rather see it before the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, and there was a
So
lot of
in that
changes,
case, do we?
45 pages long, so.
Right, I understand. No, I know, you just got it last. So should we, that was it for the agenda. Do you want us, cancel tomorrow's meeting?
Well, I have to say, my reaction is, I agree with John, it's nice to see some of these things in
Right.
advance. On the other hand, given the complexity of, and sort of all the assumptions that go into a long-term capital plan and debt plan, maybe just having an opportunity to walk through it with Brian would be
Okay.
worth some time.
Other thoughts?
Unless you think, you'd rather like push it off because you need time to.
Will you have it, you're still waiting for another draft from whoever does this work?
Right, they were adding a couple pieces because there was a couple pieces that were left off. They're adding the school and the fire to it, which were inadvertently left off what they had done, which have an impact on the future.
Right.
And we're making a summary schedule that shows the current general fund debt plus everything that we're going to be adding in every year, so we can see the fluctuations to get to what will be basically essentially at a 10-year point, a high point of all the debt and what that number looks like. It's supposed to be ready at some point tomorrow. I don't know exactly when
Okay.
that I will have it. I'm more than happy to kind of give you as soon as I have it, send it to you and go through an overview of what the assumptions were that were built in and how it was developed and continue the discussion. Or if you would rather, as soon as I get it, I can send it to you and we can have a much more in-depth conversation starting on Thursday. My suspicion is that it's going to be more than one conversation about this debt when we start all of these other conversations, especially as we talk about the sewer article and everything. So I'm either way is fine with me. I have no problem doing it. Tomorrow, if you want me to just go through the assumptions when we have it.
So do you have the assumptions that you can send us ahead of
They're all
time?
built into it.
Okay.
So I can take you through all of the assumptions that they built in.
So what's the pleasure of the committee? Would you like to wait or begin to go through this tomorrow? I don't have a preference. I do like to get things ahead of time, but
I think with the two key, with fire department and school not being part of the presentation, I would rather wait. I think those are large items.
Yeah,
all right.
that's where I was to begin with.
Yeah, I would
So
wait, too.
we'll, if that's all right with everybody, we'll cancel tomorrow's meeting. Joe, is that okay with you? And then we'll get it ahead of time? And
as soon as I have it, I'll clear it and then I'll send it to you. So
Okay,
that we can have
great.
a discussion on it.
Joe, is that all right? Sure. Okay. All right.
If I may.
Yeah.
How did they miss that?
I think there was we've been going back and forth about how we're actually going to do that borrowing, and I think in the conversation we just kind of took the path, and then unfortunately they heard something different than what we were talking. It was just an oversight, and when I looked at it, I said this isn't really going to do us very much good if I don't have that piece in it. So we talked about it in reformulating and overlaying that.
Great.
So I just think it was an honest mistake in the discussions about how to model this.
Thanks, Brian.
So Thursday, our next meeting then is on Thursday, and the agenda for Thursday is sewer projects
In school, right?
And school.
and school. Okay, so we'll do capital we won't have time to do the capital, I don't think, on Thursday if we do school.
Well, the debt modeling is all inclusive. I can focus on the sewer pieces of it.
Okay.
But it's all inclusive between capital program, and any borrowings there. What the debt currently.
So maybe Thursday you could just kind of walk us through,
Yes.
and then we can have it, like you said, it'll be several meetings, and then we'll have another follow-up meeting. So the priority for Thursday will be school, and we can ask them to come at the beginning.
Okay.
And then based on the time we have left, if that's all right, then we'll do sewer, and then if we have time, the kind of walk through of the debt. Okay, great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No meeting?
We'll just have to, Mr. Chairman, that means we'll just have to reschedule Lauren, because Lauren was going to come tomorrow as well. For energy.
Oh, the energy.
Lauren Sinatra.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll reschedule her for another meeting. Okay.
Do you want her to come Thursday, or
No.
do you want me to?
Thursday might be a little fast.
Okay, I'll push it, I'll see when she's.
Stacked up.